Good evening, everyone. This is a joint meeting between ANC 5A03 and ANC 5B05. I'm Commissioner Emily Singer-Lucio with 5A03. Commissioner Costello, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yep. Hi, everyone. This is Colleen Costello, Commissioner for 5B05. Nice to see you all here.
Thank you, Commissioner. Welcome, everyone. This is sort of a regathering of the area to discuss some issues we had talked with DDOT before about traffic on the streets and in the alleys between Taylor and Varnum on 10th Street and that whole area. And as you all know, about a year and a half ago, Commissioner Costello and I submitted a joint resolution that we shared with all of you to DDOT. So what we wanted to do tonight was first get an update from DDOT on where we are with the things we had requested on the resolution that we had shared with them. And then what I'd like to do is get feedback from the community on, the current state of things and what we can do next steps and have a conversation. So Delando, I'm going to let you start if you can give us some updates on where things are in terms of the request we had made.
Sure. Hello, everyone. I hope everyone's evening is going well. 1 second here. I'm going to be pulling up a document that Commissioner Costello sent out that highlighted the remaining items that weren't addressed here. Okay, so we can start with, there was a request here for the installation of speed bumps in the north-south alleys to the immediate east and west of the 4200 and 4300 block of 10th Street. I checked internally and was informed that we do not normally install speed humps in alleys. It's not a common implementation measure. So safety team is currently going to evaluate the alley for just additional signage. Alleys, there's not many vertical calming or traffic calming measures in alleyways. They find that typically the rubber bumps or rubber speed humps, if you will, they don't last. They typically come up. So if they install them, typically as cars start to drive over them, they don't, they're obviously not cement. So they're drilled into the concrete and they usually don't last. So we're not recommending a speed hump installation in the alley for that request. What we can do in the short-term interim is, like I said, some additional speed limit signage. And then I can move on to the next one, or we can have a conversation by each one, however you guys would like to do it. Commissioner Lucy, you're on mute.
Yep, thank you. I was trying to let people into the meeting too. Let's go through all of them and then come back and talk with them if we can.
Perfect. Okay. Thanks. All right. So we'll move on. We have the next request is installation request for flex posts along the center yellow line at the 900 and 1100 block of Taylor Street Northeast, where the alleys open up onto Taylor Street. The response I received here from our engineers basically was that we do not recommend installation of flex posts at this location since it will likely disrupt movement of trash collection vehicles using this alley. And also there is no crash pattern that they found to indicate any safety issues at this location. So they did not approve the installation of flex posts. The main reason here again is because it would most likely disrupt the movement of trash collection. But they did not also find any kind of traffic pattern concerns to mitigate any additional installations at this location. And then the next location here, let's see, I have the 1000 block of Varnum Street Northeast. And Commissioner Costello stated that the service request was closed and she wanted to know why. In short, this location is associated with the Safe Routes to School, and it is going to be a part of our planning assistance team. So they'll basically be taking 10 locations, 10 spot safety school locations throughout the city and doing a study and analysis. Derek Hardy runs that program. He stated that he will be sending, he will send the school and the ANC details on what they will be able to do in the short-term interim, as well as long-term recommendations presented in the report about Mundo Verde Elementary School. Also, any infrastructure improvements like adding missing sidewalk or ADA cross ramps to 10th Street in Barnum will most likely take place in second quarter of the year 2023. We are already in 2023 right now, so I should state that we're in quarter one. So 2023 quarter two starts in January. And the reason why that infrastructure or those mitigations won't happen until the second quarter is basically they stated that they were waiting until more funding is available. The next one we have here is install flex post curb extensions on both sides of 10th Street and a stop bar speed bump at the top of the 4300 block of 10th Street Northeast where it meets Farnham Street Northeast. This service request was also created and closed, and it seems that there wasn't a detailed message provided to Commissioner Costello. I checked internally here, and this one as well is a part of the Safe Routes to School program. So it is also in the hands of the planning assistance team. So they will be doing that again, that study and that analysis and determining which 10 spot schools they're going to pull out to do safety implementations in the second quarter of 2023.
Can I ask just a quick clarifying question? What was the intersection again for the last one?
Sure. Give me 1 second here. This location is 10th Street. It was a stop bar speed bump at the top of the 4300 block of 10th Street Northeast where it meets Farnham Street Northeast.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. And then we have here a request for an install a left turn only lane with a dedicated left turn signal phase on Taylor Street at the intersection of 10th and 12th Street. To review the signal timing on Taylor Street and the intersection of 10th and 12th Street to ensure it's adequate, particularly for rush hour traffic volumes, and that it does not encourage red light running or other reckless behavior. Checked internally here because this service request was also closed. And I should also highlight, typically when they close them, if there are next steps, they usually create some kind of explanation. Sometimes they don't. So I apologize if the service request was closed without any detailed next steps. This went to our ATE department, which is automatic traffic enforcement. I checked with Anthony and he let me know here, give me 1 second. Based on our findings, installation of a left turn bay is not recommended at this time due to conflicts with proposed bike lanes under the Move DC plan. Similarly, installation of the left turn phases was not found to be justified by the site conditions, traffic volumes, and crash history. To mitigate the left turn pedestrian conflicts, DDOT is instead proceeding with leading pedestrian interval implementation, which are LPIs. And basically that LPI will give residents a 3 to 7 second head start on crossing the crosswalk. Let's see here. And actually, let me take that back. They were actually already installed. So they already did the leading pedestrian interval. So they changed the timing to cross the street to 3 to 7 seconds. They were installed at both locations for crosswalks last year as part of our optimization program. So if that wasn't done, or if there are still concerns with that location, please feel free to let me know. But from the update that I received, they changed the LPIs at this location, giving the pedestrian an extra 3 to 7 second head start to cross the street.
Delando, can I ask you a question about that?
Sure.
I want to make sure you're talking about the cross intersection from crossing across Taylor
Correct.
at 10th Street. I know, I want to just mention real quick, since you asked, that I have gotten complaints about that and a request to extend that, and we can get into that as we go farther in the conversation,
Sure.
but I have gotten a request to extend that because it's not long enough for the school children to cross the street.
Sure, I'm happy to bring that back internally.
Thanks.
No
Can I
problem.
ask a question? This is Wendy Farmer. In the explanation that you just mentioned on Taylor Street intersection, you mentioned bike lanes. Was
Yeah.
that to imply that there's a proposal for bike lanes on Taylor Street?
Ms.
Correct.
Farmer, they are coming on Taylor Street. That's already been in the plan.
Okay, that's frustrating, but why?
Well, Ms. Taylor, we're gonna let Mr. Baker finish his report and then we can ask those questions, but that has been in the works for quite a while. We've been talking about that as a community for a while, so we can talk about that in addition to this, but let me let Mr. Baker finish his report if I could.
Sure.
Thank you.
All right, so we'll move on to the next request here, which was a request to install a left turn hardening on Taylor Street, the intersection of 10th and 12th Street. This request was closed out. Again, I apologize if there was no detailed messaging provided for next steps here, but we did complete some safety implementations here. So what they did was they installed a stop line. Well, I'm sorry, not installed. They adjusted the stop line to better accommodate buses turning at this intersection. It was a solid stop bar line, white pavement marking on 10th Street Northeast, and also a double-sided yellow pavement marking on 10th Street Northeast. So they did not approve the left turn hardening, but they did adjust the stop bar location.
And I'm sorry, where was that again, Delando?
This was for a request for install left turn hardening on Taylor Street at the intersection of 10th and 12th Street Northeast.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. And the last request here was a request to install two speed.
I'm sorry, the 10th and 12th streets don't intersect. What the hell are you talking about? They are parallel.
I think he's talking about the intersections of 10th and Taylor and the other intersection of 12th and Taylor.
Thank
That's
you.
what we had said, yep.
Is
Thanks.
it possible to have these junctions that he's referring to put up so one can see?
Yeah,
Or is this
so,
not? Excuse me.
yeah, I'm sorry, real quick. So this is, just for everybody's clarification, this is the, what he's going down are the list of the resolution that we as a community, Commissioner Costello and I collectively in each of our ANCs proposed to the community and passed through our ANCs about 1.5 years ago. If anybody needs a copy of that, it is on the ANC 5A website, but I'm also happy to share it with other people. But let me let him, he's on the last one, so let me let him finish and then we can talk about the whole issue collectively. So Delano, go ahead and do the last one.
Sure, no problem. The last request here was for, sorry, the screen popped up. Last request was for request to install 2 speed cameras between the 700 and 1000 block of Taylor Street Northeast to deter speeding motorists in the eastbound and westbound direction on Taylor Street. And if, let's see, request was, and if only we can do 1 speed camera if feasible, install 1 camera in the same area to deter speeding from the direction where it occurs most frequently. I know that there was not a service request listed here. We didn't actually have one in the system. So we talked directly to our automated traffic enforcement department to see if this was something that would be feasible. They let us know that they will review these locations and consider them for ATE rotation, but they also wanted to highlight that there are 30 other requests that they are currently looking at. So from a timeline perspective, they don't have a timeline to provide to anyone when they will actually have that assessment completed at this moment.
Thank you, Delando. So, so just for everyone's information, so thank you, Anne. She put a link to the document in the chat, so you all should have have access to the document. What I'd like to do now is open it up for discussion. I'm going to give Commissioner Costello first chance, and then after that, if people can use the raise hand feature on the Zoom, that would be helpful. So Commissioner Costello, go ahead.
All right, thanks, Commissioner. Yeah, so I think one of the biggest complaints that I'm still hearing from residents about are the alleys. Mr. Baker, I know you said that DDOT could put signs by the alleys. What kind of signs? I don't know if
Just
you.
speed limit sign. So if it's like 15 miles per hour in that speed in that alleyway, then we could install additional speed limit signage. But there is no what we call vertical traffic calming measures that we can force drivers to physically slow down in alleys. We don't install speed humps. There's just certain implementations that don't exist for alleyways.
Okay, do alleys have speed limits? I didn't realize they did.
Yeah, they do.
Oh, great. That's
Yeah,
good to
they
know. You know, something that another resident also requested, and I think, I don't know if I had emailed this to you separately, Mr. Baker, but it's related to the alley traffic. So they asked whether the signs at the head of the alley on Varnum Street, which are they currently restrict traffic, I think between 4 and 6:30 PM. That's outside of school hours, and it seems like the schools in the neighborhood are the ones that drive most of the traffic. So they asked whether those signs could be changed to the morning hours when they tend to see the highest, I guess, density of traffic coming through the alleys. Do you think that's something we should check with the team on? I can try
Yeah,
and
I can check and see if it's feasible. I don't
Okay.
recall that email. Did it come through today?
I don't think I might not have
Okay.
emailed it to you. I did put
Okay.
in a service request and I can find the number and share it with you.
That'd be great. Yeah, if you could
Okay.
forward it to me, I can definitely take it back to the team. I'm not really sure from a signage perspective with like the time restrictions, why it's in place and what it's for. But I'm happy to let them know the community requested to be adjusted and see if that's something that DDOT can do.
Okay, and then one last question, on the 1000 block of Varnum Street, I think you said the Safe Routes to School team is going to be identifying,
10 locations.
yeah, so it's kind of like a pilot project.
Correct. It's
Okay.
yeah, it's basically, it's something that's new. It's going to be a study and analysis complete, and basically Derek Hardy, I'm not sure if you guys have worked directly with Derek or not. He'll have to go back to ANC and he'll be sharing with the commissioners in short the details of the schools that were chosen, the areas that were chosen, and the short-term and long-term measures that'll be implemented. And
Okay,
that
I guess
should be, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. My question would be then, if there's a pilot project and this neighborhood isn't selected, does that mean DDOT won't be doing anything, or
Good
can we just
question.
go through the normal process?
We can go through the normal process, but I mean, I don't believe that they will be interested. At this point, it seems from what I'm understanding, they're not going through the normal process until the study is done and they've chosen the 10 schools, if that makes sense. So he closed out the service request. Derek Hardy runs Safe Routes to School. He closed out 3, I believe, of the service requests that fit this realm of traffic safety concerns. And he basically stated that these locations will be considered for the 10 that will be in the study. And whichever ones they choose to implement, I don't know at this moment if they don't choose these locations for the schools, if we just have to start the service request over, or if there are just secondary measures that can happen even though they're not chosen for the study. I'm not sure, but I do know that as of right now, it can't go through the normal process, which is why it was closed out and included in this new study.
Okay, yeah, I guess I'm a little troubled by that. We can talk more offline, but I've got 3 schools in my district. Commissioner Lucio has the schools on Varnum Street in this neighborhood. I think maybe, I don't know if you have another one, Commissioner Lucio, but we each have several schools, daycares, et cetera. And it would be a real shame if DDOT is only picking 10 schools across the entire city to improve traffic safety to the exclusion of every other school, because I think there are a couple of hundred schools throughout the city. So hopefully that's not the case. Hopefully
I'm happy to talk to you offline about it. I think that it's not that there won't be traffic implementations to happen in the future. I think just in the short-term interim, this is probably actually going to be the quickest way to pull out 10 schools and do those implementations. Going through the standard 130-day process doesn't seem, I don't know if it's like a time concern issue where they just can't meet the SLA to have that done and closed out with next steps in 130 days at these locations. It may just be too many requests put in at the same areas.
Yeah, well, I will say, like on Varnum Street, we've had a pending request for over 1.5 years now for speed humps. So we have had a lot of time already. I hope we don't have to wait another 100 and however many days.
Yeah.
Oh, no, sorry. Let's see. I said it was 1.5 years, so maybe 500 days. Anyway, I'll let other folks ask their questions because it looks like there's a lot. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Thank you, Commissioner Casello.
Can I ask a question? Because I'm actually driving and I can't raise my hand. And
Ms. Farmer, I'm gonna go in the order, so I'll add you to the lineup, okay? So the next I have in line is Ann Doherty.
Thanks, Emily. So just for edification, DC law, the speed limit in an alley is 15 miles an hour, and DC traffic laws say that drivers are legally required to come to a full and complete stop before any part of their vehicle crosses the sidewalk. I think part of the reason why we are seeing such bad vehicular behavior in the alleys is because basically nobody knows that. So my first question is it possible for us to get that information posted? With respect to the timed do not enter signs at the mouths of the alleys on Varnum Street, those timed do not enter signs were timed for evening because when 10th Street was first made one way, the primary problem that we had with traffic in the alley was the shift change at Providence Hospital. Obviously, with Providence closed, that is no longer an issue. So changing that timing to morning might be more helpful, but truthfully, I am not exactly hopeful that that will work because people really don't follow the traffic laws. They speed, they ignore the do not enter sign, they don't come to a full and complete stop when they're coming westbound on Upshur Street at the corner of 10th and Upshur. We are unable to get a speed hump in the 900 block because DDOT insists that it is too short, which frankly, I do not understand. And putting up more signs for people to ignore doesn't seem like it's really going to do much of anything, to be perfectly frank.
I totally agree. And if I may, at least relative to alleys, some of what you mentioned, like you said, some drivers don't necessarily follow what they see. Some of the concerns are driver behavior, and that's just not something that DDOT can completely manage. That would be MPD to enforce, whether that's having an officer out to issue tickets and monitor people running stop signs, etc. There is unfortunately only so much DDOT can actually physically do when it comes to driver behavior. But as far as the time restriction, as I mentioned earlier, I'm happy to go back to the team and follow up with the commissioners regarding that request.
Great. Thank you, Delando. Mr. Brinley. Am I saying that correctly? Oh, you're muted, Mr. Brinley.
Brinley, great.
Brinley.
Thank you.
My
Thank you. I am regularly these days traveling up Upshur from, say, 13th to the alley in the 900 block at about 8 in the morning. And I encounter the things that people are complaining about regularly. What's happening? It's really dangerous. This is a thing. This is not just for fun. You've got people who are bicycling with 2 kids on the back of their bike to get up to daycare, to get down to school, something like that. And with people driving fast on Upshur in order to cut down the alley because they're impatient one way or another. They drive fast up Upshur, they drive fast down the alley, they drive straight to 10th Street, straight to Taylor sometimes. Sometimes they there's a cutoff, whereas it's between, what's right above Taylor. Anyway, there's a cutoff that takes you further to the west, so you drop out on Taylor. Somebody's going to get hurt. I don't care if a speed bump is going to wear out in a month. You've got to do something physically to discourage people. You've got to do something to change the shape of the road.
Understand.
You're talking about kids. You're talking about kids being carried on the backs of bikes. You're not talking about 2 cars in collision or a dump truck in collision with a car.
Understood. As of now, and again, these are not my words, these are the agency's words. And again, I'm happy to report back concerns. We are not installing speed humps in alleys. It's not feasible for us to manage to replace out every month. We don't have the resources to do that.
Do they have to be rubber?
Yeah, they have to be rubber. We can't put in like paving.
So the
I'm sorry.
people talking out.
A couple of people.
Okay.
Then
So-
you got to put something in on Upshur in the block that's too short to put one in. You should put 3 speed bumps in on Upshur. That's where people are speeding to get to this alley. I mean, it's just nonsense. You are in charge of traffic calming measures. To put it off on MPD is false. Your job is traffic calming, and you got to do something in this area.
Understood. Yeah, I'll definitely take that back to the team as far as Upshur and see if there's something else we can do alternatively.
Thank
for
you.
traffic calming. Commissioner,
Thank you.
now commissioners, help me out here. I'm not completely aware of all of the traffic implementations, but have there been, and if so, please feel free to share. I think it'll be better of a collaborative conversation. Have there been safety implementations that have been installed at Upshur as of now? Are you guys aware of what's already been done?
There's on the 1000 block of Upshur, there are 2 speed humps. But as I have observed and neighbors have said to me, when they're heading westbound, after they cross the second speed hump, they pick up speed between that last vertical piece of traffic calming and the stop sign. And sometimes they go through the stop sign. And I know Anne, I think she's still on the call. Yeah, there's Anne. Anne mentioned this to me too, and I observed it the other day walking around the neighborhood. So, I mean,
Upshur and what?
when they're on Upshur Street, heading westbound towards 10th Street.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, there's a lot of space between that second speed hump and the stop sign. And I think it might be prudent to try and do something in that gap there, or at the stop sign if we can. Or I think I may have put in a request for this or suggested that it might be feasible to do like a raised intersection at 10th and Upshur.
East crosswalk.
Traffic table, I mean, sorry.
Oh, okay. Raised speed table. Got it.
Delano, I do want to make sure you're watching the chat because there's some follow-up discussion in the chat.
I'm actually honestly not. I'm taking notes as we go through this. I have like a Word document up, but I can go into the chat. Am I just reading questions?
No, I just wanted you to be aware of some of the follow-up comments that were being made
Oh,
about
okay.
some of the things. So just
Yeah,
if
I'm
you-
happy to, before the meeting's over, I'll copy paste everything out and put it
Great.
into a document to review.
Thank you. Okay, so next on my list, I have Deborah.
Good evening. Hello.
Good evening.
Good
Hi,
evening.
Deborah.
The question, I have a comment. There are the violators and then those that are being violated. And so the majority of this traffic that we're talking about in the mornings, Mr. Baker, and in the evenings is a result of parents picking up children and bringing children to Mundo Verde. There is some traffic that may be coming from Maryland and other places with people going to work, but the level of that traffic is not like it used to be before COVID-19. So at the end of the day, there should have been a representative on here from Mundo Verde to talk about what are they doing to communicate to their parents about safety and traffic. Because if they're speeding through the alley with other parents on bicycles taking their children to school or walking or doing other things, they have a responsibility as well. And Mr. Brindley, I see you shaking your head when I'm talking about the majority of the traffic. So if it's not the school, then who is it?
Deborah, let me respond to that real quick and say that we did have a meeting with the school about this issue, and I had shared that information with Commissioner Costello. It was a meeting open to the public. I'm happy. We will be meeting with them again because they are going to continue to expand, and so we are very conscientious of this issue. They are going to be doing a traffic safety study, and one of the things that came out of the last meeting.
Emily, who is they?
Mundo Verde is doing a private traffic, so they've hired a private group to do a traffic safety study.
Are
And
they doing it in conjunction with DDOT?
no, they're doing it as in part of their construction plan like they did before when they opened. Each project is required to do a traffic safety study, and so they're doing that, and then they will submit that with their proposal once they go through zoning. But one of the things that came out of that meeting is that the residents who were on that call asked to come up with a joint agreement between the residents and the school. If there's other people on this call who would like to be part of that task force that is drafting or revising the draft of that agreement, please email me at ANC at 5AO3@anc.dc.gov, and I will include you on that. Some of the residents in my SMD, along with representatives from the school, are working on that collectively. We are well aware that the traffic from the school is the major part of this problem. And the school is not going away. So our goal in meeting tonight was that we had was to follow up from our meeting with DDOT a year and a half ago based on our resolution. So what we wanted to do tonight was to get an update on the things that we had put in the resolution and see what other traffic calming measures we could work on with DDOT as a community. I hope that makes sense.
I clearly understand everything you're saying, but I will go back to my initial comment. There are the violators and then those that are being violated, which are the residents that live in this community. Whether the school stays or it goes away, something has to happen with this traffic, especially if you're going to add an additional 160 to 200 more students. Those babies can't get on the metro and come to school. Somebody has to bring them.
Thank you, Deborah. I'm going to go to ECOC. I'm sorry if I mispronounced that.
That's right. So my name is Ekoke, and I think there are several things that I hear, and I don't know why they have to be mutually exclusive. It is the fact that you know, there are several reasons why you don't want to put speed calming measures in an alleyway, but that can also be in conjunction with the MPD writing several tickets on particular days, and that would probably let people know they can't speed in that location because they might get caught. And it doesn't have to be on a particular day that they're there always. They can mix and match days that the enforcing traffic regulations in the alleyways. And I think that would be effective, because for somebody who's lived about 23 years in the community, when they installed the speed camera on 12th Street, people were not speeding so fast, passing and running red lights on Michigan Avenue because that speed camera was there. So I think they can do in conjunction with that, with the MPD, try and do something to stop people from, be it the parents who are coming to drop off kids or people who are going to work, but to totally make sure that people are not speeding in those alleyways.
Thank you. Roxana?
Thank you, Emily. I'm going to put myself on video because I'd like people to see who I am. I am a Mundo Verde parent and one of the many parents who bikes her children. I bike my kids to school almost every day. And so many of Joe's comments from earlier today speak to me in a very personal way. And I appreciate all the efforts to improve safety for pedestrians and cyclists in this area, because Joe is right. It is extraordinarily dangerous. And Delando, like, look at my face and think of 2 6-year-olds on a bicycle. This is the pattern repeated dozens of times every single morning and every single afternoon at Mundo Verde. And it's only going to get worse, because not only is the school going to increase in the number of students, but also in the size of the school, right? Like, for those of you that do not know, on this call, Mundo Verde is purchasing additional property right across the street from its current location. And so the school is only going to grow, and these problems are going to get worse. So I want to put that as the backdrop. My comment to you, Delando, is twofold. First, on the speed bumps in alleyways, or actually, no. First, let me just comment more generally that as I was listening to you talk through some of the items that I guess Commissioners Costello and Singh-Lucio had sent you via email, as someone who didn't have that email in front of me, all I can say is that it sounded like denial, 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 denial. Like, every single request sounded like a denial. And I want you to think, and I would ask you to talk to your superiors about what that sounds like to a community that is literally desperate and has been asking for months for assistance. What we're getting and what we're hearing is just no, 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 no. And I don't know how you or your colleagues can really do that and think that this is acceptable. So I'd ask you to really think about that and the optics of that for a community that has been asking for assistance for months, if not years. And then the second piece on speed bumps, it's not that they're not possible. They exist, and they exist in Chicago, where I am originally from. And so to say that speed bumps in alleys is not possible is, if not a straight out misrepresentation, then at least like a failure of leadership and a failure of will, because they exist and they work. And for DDOT to simply say they don't exist in DC, that's not an option for us, is just a really weak argument, right? Like if it doesn't exist in your toolbox now, what can be done to include it in the toolbox moving forward? Because the safety issues are really, I cannot stress them enough. And to somebody else's point here, a speed limit sign in the alleyway is not going to help people, is really not going to help the situation when you have drivers already breaking the laws left, right, and center and endangering kids' lives. So that's my comment to you, which I think at a very, very high level can be summarized as unacceptable. Please take this back. I think the community is really upset here, and we are rightfully upset because what we've heard is just excuse after excuse and just denial after denial. And someone's going to get killed, in the same way that Allie Hart was killed in Ward 5 in front of a school, and it's going to suck. And that's the only momentum that DDOT actually pays attention to, or that's the only time that DDOT actually listens to its constituents' requests for additional traffic safety measures. Please don't tell me that it takes the death of another 5-year-old child or 6-year-old child for DDOT to do the right thing again, or to do the right thing, period.
Thank you, Roxana. Wendy.
Thank you, Roxana. If I can.
Yeah, sure. Delano, go ahead.
Thanks for sharing. To address both concerns that you listed. The first one, I'll go ahead and, as far as the speed humps go, I understand, other cities may have that implementation, and DDOT may need to catch up with that. As of now, just being transparent, because I'll be honest, I'd rather be transparent than be very vague or give false hope. There are tons of alleys around the city. It is not something that is being implemented as of now. So just from a place of setting community expectation, it's not something happening in the near future. Where we're at, being completely transparent, is speed signage. We don't, as of now, DDOT does not install speed humps. I think that what Mrs. Ikoke said, I'm sorry if I didn't get your name right, it is a collaborative measure. So everything is not on DDOT. I know we are the Department of Transportation, but when it comes to, again, certain things that are driver behavior, MPD has a duty to enforce speeding, and there are other agencies that may need to be a part of the conversation. I think I totally agree with you as far as the safety concerns in the alley, but I would definitely encourage the commissioners to engage other agencies that may be able to assist here, because as of now, for safety, DDOT cannot implement or chooses not to implement. And I'm happy to get additional information on the details as to why. I know for sure the meetings that I've taken with other ANCs and neighborhoods, it is just a costly measure that requires too much maintenance. And I hear you shaking your head, but what I want to highlight is
Really not an acceptable response when we're talking about.
Okay,
people's
guys,
safety.
let him finish speaking, please.
what I would like to highlight is the maintenance. So when we install speed hump, okay,
Who cares?
okay.
Who cares about the cost when you're literally talking about people's lives being put at risk?
I totally understand how personal it is to you. We do have a budget, so we don't, it isn't just money that we just have. There are budgets and allocations like any other agency. And
They're
as
just
of now,
lives.
But
They're
Delano, the reality is that, as Roxana has already mentioned, is that if there was a serious accident like the situation with Allie Hart, there would be money to be found to fix it.
Well, can I ask you this,
so-
Commissioner? You've been a commissioner, you've lived in DC for a while. Have you really ever seen a frequency of speed humps in alleys? Is that something, you've been a commissioner?
No,
you've
and
been a
it may be that has been DDOT's DDOT's mantra that they would not be installing them, but that's not to say that that's not possible to do.
No, I
since
never
it
said it's
exists.
not possible. And I
Well,
said, I'm happy to share it back with.
But DDOT,
internally.
that you said DDOT won't do it, and that,
I'm
and the
to
fact that, you know,
to set community expectation, being transparent with you all. I'm saying that that is not something we implement as of now. So in the short term, since this is a conversation about safety, I'm only encouraging to engage other agencies like MPD who can enforce and possibly help mitigate the speeding concerns in alleys. We,
I'll just-
on our end, what I've been told we are able to do as of now is install additional speed limit signage. So that's where we're at now. I'm not saying the conversation can't happen, but it will not be something overnight that will change, right? Our guidelines, we don't install speed humps in alleyways. So even if it happens, it's not going to be in the immediate. And since this is an immediate concern about traffic safety, I think that it will be wise to engage other agencies who can actually assist in the immediate time.
and we can certainly do that. And so, Delando, you know, I want to make sure that we're all clear, right? This is a meeting of the residents who are directly impacted by the traffic on 10th Street, Varnum Street, Taylor Street, the side streets that are around there, and the issues related to the development of the school, right? Because
Yes, ma'am.
as been noted, all this additional traffic. So this particular area, which is what we're talking about tonight, we're not talking about another area in 5A or 5B, right? We're talking specifically about this area, right?
Yeah.
This is a small area. And for this small area to have this many problems is a significant issue, right?
Understand.
And where there's not just one school, there's 3 schools located there, right? There's the Washington Jesuit School and there's a daycare center there. There are 3 schools located in that small area, right? And so we really need to find, you know, I understand the frustration of the community, right? And what Roxana said is correct. It does feel like every time we turn around, DDOT says, no, we can't address this, right? No, we can't do this. We really need to hear from DDOT some solutions to what can be done. And while signage is helpful, it clearly doesn't always solve the problem, right? And I understand that sometimes we need to do things in baby steps, right? We need to say, we're going to do this signage, see if that works. If that doesn't work, then we're going to go to the next thing. I understand that sometimes that is the process. But as has been made very clear, we have been requesting these things for over a year, right? This traffic issue we had a little bit of a hiccup and a pause with COVID, right? But prior to COVID, these problems were already starting to emerge. And so, you know, hold on. I'm going to go in order. Okay, please. So just raise your hand and I can.
Ma'am, you're the
you're not gonna
commissioner.
control the
Yes.
I'm
narrative.
sorry. I'm sorry.
I am.
sorry.
So I am.
Ma'am,
You're not.
ma'am, she is the commissioner. I'm sorry. She is the commissioner.
I am the commissioner.
However, ma'am, I just need to say this, please. This is for the people in the community. I thought to speak to the people for DDOT because the commissioners had sent information to them. So
It's
I'd like
for all
to
of
hear
us.
from the rest. I'd like to hear from the rest of the community members.
Ma'am, I will. Everyone's gonna get a chance. This is just like an ANC meeting where everybody gets a chance and the commissioners
Well,
can talk as
I
well.
mean-
So the next person I was going to call on was Wendy Farmer. So Ms. Farmer, please go ahead.
And before she speaks, if I can really quickly, because I know everyone has, you know, some comments to make here. I don't know if the commissioners have shared with the community all of the resolution, but the resolution didn't just exist with the items that I reviewed. So there were safety implementations that were mitigated here. If Commissioner Costello and Lucio can possibly chime in on what actually was completed on the resolution, because I know it was a long list and we only are discussing the things that are outstanding, correct?
Well, we're talking about things that are outstanding, but we're also talking about the continuing problems and how we address them
Of course,
overall.
we're talking about a multitude of things. I just want the community to understand. I don't want the picture to be painted that you guys sent a list and all of the things on the list were not.
No, so yeah, the speed humps on Tausig, Upshur, Urell, and 10th Street were completed. But the speed bumps in the alleys were also in the resolution. So that technically is an outstanding.
Yeah,
matter.
that's fair enough to address those. I just don't know that the community is aware that there were other things in the resolution. That's all I was saying. Because I know that the going trend was that everyone keeps saying DDOT says no, no, no. Well, there's a lot of things we did implement
Well,
Also,
we got speed humps, but I think that was kind of the big thing. I don't think that we've gotten, oh, we got
Oh,
one
We got the
ADA.
crosswalks,
crosswalk.
yeah, the ADA sections in the crosswalk at the corner.
Yep.
We did get those. Okay, Miss Farmer, I'm sorry for holding you up. It is your turn.
That's okay. As when I asked the question that I asked, I was literally driving on Taylor Street. And the reason why I asked that, why bike lanes were going to be introduced on Taylor Street when this resolution that we're speaking of is already showing concern and problems with traffic backup, fogging of Taylor Street. Why would we consider bike lanes on Taylor Street when there's only enough room for 2-lane cars? And the reason why I asked that is because I was just up on Monroe Street between 7th and Michigan Avenue just this past Thursday, where they have introduced a bike lane, then a parking car lane, then the driving lane, which leaves you with the narrow 2-lane traffic between, I believe, 9th Street and Michigan Avenue because of that bike lane. Unfortunately, there was an ambulance behind me, and that ambulance pushed traffic up into Monroe Street, leading into Michigan, and we had nowhere to go because there was a bike lane that was blocking with those center blocks on that bike lane, and traffic couldn't even move into the bike lane to get out of this ambulance's way. So my concern is for the day-to-day people who need access to the hospital a half a mile away. And that ambulance had to take 4 minutes to back up, turn around, go on to 7th Street, then go up to Michigan Avenue. And we all know that 4 minutes is the difference between life and death. The reason why I'm frustrated with this 1.5-year-old resolution is because, like Delano said, a lot of changes have been made, and then a lot of negative solutions have come out of this change. I know it was intended to be positive, but this resolution has created a lot of more problems. Can we slow down the resolution of this resolution?
The only thing
Because
that
now we're putting Band-Aids on more and more problems that have come up because of this resolution. I mean, you're talking about traffic humps or speed humps in an alleyway. What are you going to do about trash trucks that have to get into the alleyways, the delivery men that have to get into the alleyways? I mean, it's just Band-Aid after Band-Aid after Band-Aid from this resolution that has not been well vetted across this community. And I don't care how long you say this resolution has been out there, it has not been well vetted, well communicated, or studied across the entire community.
Can I respond? We actually had several meetings last year, Ms. Farmer. I think you moved into the neighborhood last March or April. And that was around the time that we had, that was around the time that Commissioner Lucio and I had meetings with our constituents. I and Commissioner Lucio and some of her neighbors personally went and put paper flyers on all of the neighbors' doors so that they were aware of the meeting. We each met with everyone who showed up, and I also solicited feedback via email. I think Commissioner Lucio did as well. And then we also, based on that feedback that we received, we presented our recommendations to our full body ANCs, and they had a vote on it, and they approved ANC 5B's resolution unanimously. I don't know what the vote was in ANC 5A, but it passed. And as Mr. Baker said, I think it's pretty clear that our resolution hasn't actually accomplished very much. The most that we've gotten right now are some speed humps and a crosswalk. The resolution itself is quite lengthy. There were a lot of traffic calming measures that we requested, and it seems pretty obvious from the presentation tonight that most of them are not going to be approved based on what the traffic engineers have said at DDOT. So we really haven't gotten that far, and the problems continue. So that's what the purpose of tonight's meeting is to try and find solutions. And I would love to know if you have any ideas about how to address traffic safety in a neighborhood that has so many children and families coming here multiple times a day. And so that we also make sure that residents are safe and protected, because a lot of the residents whose homes abut the alleys that these drivers are cutting through have had near misses. And I think in one case in Commissioner Lucio's district, there was a child who was struck. So, the problems are real,
Well-
and we're trying to
well,
find
Commissioner-
solutions, not just put the brakes on
Commissioner-
things, because the brakes have been on for a long time and it's not getting us anywhere.
Commissioner Costello, you mentioned that I came into the community in March of 21, but I was born and raised in Washington, D.C., and my family home is 2 miles away from here. I could walk to my family home, so it
I just meant
borders.
you moved to the neighborhood
well,
in your current home.
So I'm saying that I'm very familiar with the issues of Ward 5, the traffic patterns in Ward 5, and have commuted up and down Michigan Avenue and Taylor Street all my life. And this resolution and the traffic calming measures, as you know, has caused cascading effects at the intersection of 13th and Upshur Street with restricted parking, which I hope Delano and the DDOT will be able to attend that meeting this coming Friday. But with that additional problem and other problems, these traffic measures have created some cascading negative effects that you've got to recognize and be willing to slow down to allow for the community or either DDOT to actually study. Because again, when I see an ambulance unable to get to a hospital a half a mile away, that happens on a daily basis. I recognize children and the risk that it takes to get to a school, but we see ambulances jammed up in traffic on a daily basis because of these flexi posts or center block posts that are blocking traffic because people can't get over. And I think about that from the perspective of my elderly parent not being able to get to the hospital in an ambulance because people can't move out of the way.
Thank you, Ms. Farmer. I do want to clarify that the bike lane issue on Taylor is not what we're here to discuss. That is part of the city's plan to reduce traffic and improve safety, as it was pointed out in the chat. And protected bike lanes do make it safer for families to bike to school, and we are trying to increase the number of families that do bike to school. There is a big push for that. But right now, what we want to talk about is specifically the areas of 10th Street, Varnum Street, and those side streets, and the traffic calming measures. The resolution that Commissioner Costello and I had put, that has already been submitted. That's already been approved by the community. And so all we're doing is getting follow-up from that. We're not looking to make any changes or new resolutions with that. I'm going to go next to Ralph Buxell. He was next on my list.
Hi. First off, I've been for months tracking the traffic, and my house is right on Taylor, right by 10th Street. And
I'm sorry, Ralph, we lost sound on you.
I don't have the sound?
There you go. You
Oh.
got it now.
Okay, thank you. I have been studying this stuff for months, and I've got tons of videos and pictures of what's going on in the neighborhood. And as a matter of fact, one of the neighbors asked me to go up and observe the traffic at 10th and Varnum Street. Not 10th and Varnum, 10th and Upshur Street. 67 cars came up that street in 35 minutes, and they made left turns down the alley by Ann's house, and none of them stopped for the pedestrians coming up and the bicyclists coming up that alley, or the traffic that was coming down from the school. And there's a major problem in that, the idea that it's a fallacy that all the problems are because of the parents coming down up and down the alley. It's a major problem there. But part of the problem is we have a lot of commuters coming up all the side streets and all the alleys, not only the alleys from 12th, people on the alleys below that. These people are racing to the alleys. People are telling me we have to do something to stop the racing in the alleys because they're trying to get to 10th Street. My bedroom, upstairs bedroom, looks over the alley right before you get to 10th Street. And I've got videos of these people coming through, trying to break into the traffic. None of them are stopping at the sidewalk. They go all the way to the street and they don't stop and look if anybody's walking. And as they're saying, we have a huge number of people biking their kids to school and walking their kids to school. A lot of them go up the alley behind by Ann's house that goes directly up there. And part of the problem is we've got tons of people driving that alley, as Joe indicated, and they're speeding. And once again, I've got the videos from my bedroom that shows these people coming down. Some of them still have children in their car. So it's not only the commuters, but the commuters are also causing problems because I thought that they were coming all the way up the alley. They are going, we have 4 alleys between 12th Street and the bridge. And people are fully coming down the alleys. Again, I've gone out and take pictures of these things. So we've got a problem with commuters using our alleys as streets. We also have a problem with the parents using the alleys as street instead of going around and having DDOT figure out a way to improve the traffic movement. We can't have the parents also coming down the street alleys and then complaining about the traffic and the danger to the children. Those signs, as Ann indicated, we worked out with Providence Hospital when they were getting off at the time, and we had those signs put up there. And we wrote a letter for Sister Carol at Providence, and she gave it to her staff, and that cut back on the traffic. If you go over on Eastern Avenue, if you're going to, Fort Lincoln, you will see on Newton Street and Monroe Street, there are signs up saying no traffic between this hour and that hour. It's morning traffic to keep the streets from being backed up. I see no reason why we can't do that. And, in this idea of putting signs up, the city's thinking about reducing the speed to 10 miles an hour in alleys. The thing is, people aren't paying attention to it. And so what I think they have to do, they need to put signs in the alleys or block off the alleys so that commuters can't go down them, that residents of the alleys can go down, but so that everybody ends up back on Varnum Street. And if people want to come through, the sign should say no local traffic only on those signs, and then have the police there, our traffic givers, giving tickets to people who violate it. And that will send a message. We've had the police giving tickets finally on 12th Street in the restricted lane sections of 12th Street, and the tickets are $150. DDOT needs to say, we're going to start doing this to make an impression on people. If you want to come down these alleys and you want to do all this, then you're going to pay for the privilege of supporting the city. And as for somebody said about the number of people who had died, to get those lights at 10th and Taylor, it took 2 people dying before we got those traffic signals at 10th and Taylor. Now, the other thing I want to mention is, today when I was taking pictures of the kids from Petite Scholars, going down 10th Street, going down 12th Street, going down Taylor, going down Sigsbee, and crossing Taylor Street, to document the need for DDOT to slow the speed down, because the kids from Monte Verde go to this playground, and we've got hundreds of kids crossing Taylor Street. And we've asked the teachers to stop the kids at the property line, not to allow them to go to the corners. The corners at 10th and Taylor and 12th and Taylor are supposed to have bump outs. They've been planning these bike things for years, bike lanes for years. And I had to give DDOT, as Delano knows, the letter that they sent me in 2015 about bike lanes and bump outs. DDOT needs to implement those, because we have drag racing every day on Taylor Street, and it is a nightmare. And as some, and it's in both directions. just not one direction, that these people are speeding, and they drag race on the street because from the alley below 12th Taylor Street and 12th up to 8th Street, it's clear, and the people drag race on the streets even during the day. So we're talking about these kids being killed with these people driving that way. And as the people have indicated, and Joe's indicated, you know, we've got to stop the traffic. Before COVID happened, the kids who went to the Jesuit school used to take the bus and subway, walk from the subway and walk up the alley to get to school. And, you know, and so we have all these parents, and maybe we ought to say that that alley over there above 10th Street, above 10th Street should be restricted to pedestrians and bicyclists, and just stop this nonsense. The only exception to that should be local people who live in these blocks. The traffic every day is outrageous, and I've been filming all this because DDOT has to understand the problem and the extensive problem that we have in this neighborhood with the traffic, and so that's enough. But it is a major problem. And can you imagine, in 40 minutes, 67 cars crossing 10th Street, not stopping and going down that alley? That is outrageous. The people are bicycling, which is good, and that's important, but they're walking the kids up the street too. We can't have these kids getting killed. And all the neighbors all the way down to 13th Street are complaining about the speed of the traffic, the trash that the people are throwing out of their cars, and it is a nightmare in our section. As a matter of fact, they cross over my street to go to the alley beside my house. They speed down Sigsbee going towards 12th Street. We have 9 children under 10 on that block, and we've got a bunch of babies who are out there. And then they also go down and they go to the right and go the one way up to 10th Street to get down to the light on on 10th Street and Michigan Avenue. And they go one way, and so people almost crash, including myself, when you're coming from the other direction. And I've got pictures that I just took for this week where a sign was knocked down this week while a truck was trying to get through the intersection, which is supposedly prohibited to trucks. And so DDOT has to help us enforce the regulations. And a lot of the problems are also not the regular trash trucks, but the trash trucks that are going into Turkey Thicket and driving on streets that are restricted to trucks. Enough said.
Thank you, Ralph. I appreciate that. Lois, you're next.
Thank you, Emily. So a lot of things here. One thing, the first thing that comes to my mind is, I know we've talked about the fact that signs do not necessarily help and stop people or make them obey whatever the sign says, like speed limit 15 in the alley. But has there been any consideration of putting a stop sign in the alley before the sidewalk so that people will actually might possibly slow down and recognize that people in the street have the right of way, and also stop before they hit somebody that might be in the sidewalk? I would also recommend that as something for DDOT to consider, in addition to signage saying that the speed limit is 15 miles per hour in these alleys. The other thing with the speed bumps in the alleys, I'm not sure why they would wind up being replaced so frequently. The speed bumps that are in the roads don't need to be replaced that frequently. Why can we not have the same speed bumps in the alleys? I certainly see, as as Ralph has pointed out just recently, trash trucks that go along 10th Street, they have no problems going over the speed bumps that are along 10th Street. Why can't we have the same type of speed bumps in the alleys? The other thing I wanted to address was and I don't remember her name, the lady before who was driving along Taylor Street and could not pull over to be out of the way of the ambulance. I will point out Providence is no longer a hospital. There is only a urgent care center there. And while I obviously understand that anybody that is going to the urgent care also needs to have whatever medical treatment that they need, and it's important for them to get there as quickly as possible. It is no longer a hospital. And I think that the sorts of items that are going, folks that are traveling to that particular urgent care, hopefully are not in any sort of life-threatening sort of situation. I still realize that making them spend more time having to route around the fact that traffic can't pull over because of the bike lane is really more of an inconvenience than life-threatening.
Thank you, Lois. I appreciate those comments. Joyce. You're muted.
Yes, hi, good evening, everyone. Yeah, the traffic, as I said, I agree with Wendy and also Ralph. So I'll just ditto what they said because they kind of took everything I wanted to say, so I'm not going to repeat that. But my concern is we're all talking about the traffic, and my husband and I, we were out and we were counting cars and doing the same thing. The traffic has gotten worse since the schools have been put down in that area. And my concern also is the children walking down Varnum Street. Now, let me say this about the alleys and I understand what you're saying, Mr. Baker. Is that Delando? Yeah, I understand what you're saying. It may not be feasible. It's probably something that probably will not be done. So that's the reality of that. So, and you don't have anything to do with that part. Like you say, it has to be a collaborative effort in order for something like that happen. That's not on DDOT alone. I agree, absolutely agree with whoever made that statement. However, the one thing that I have a problem with, and several of the folks in this community have a problem with, it seems like everything has impacted us in this area, 10th Street, 12th Street, Varnum Street, the townhouses. You had just mentioned something about the urgent care. We're not talking about ambulances going to urgent care. Usually when they're coming to urgent care, they're coming to take people back, take them to a hospital. She's talking about the ambulance that's probably going to Washington Hospital Center. That's probably what she's talking about. But usually for something like that with urgent care, they're picking up people and taking them to a hospital. They're just there to be observed. So it seems like it doesn't matter what we say, what we think, or how we feel. It's that we are always impacted. The schools now is impacted. We've got the playground over there now with the kids crossing the street at 12th and Varnum, which I think is very, very dangerous. So I didn't even know anything about a playground being put over there. My husband didn't know. My neighbors didn't know. We didn't know about a playground. So I see these kids walking down the street now, and they're crossing one of the busiest streets on 12th Street. One group of kids just barely made it across the street before this truck comes down. I think it was a Ford Runner or one of those big trucks coming through there. That's dangerous. So every time it's impacting this neighborhood, you start, like she said, Band-Aid after Band-Aid after Band-Aid, but you're not considering what we're going through as a community when you welcome these things in our community. I've been here for 23 years and I've never seen anything. It's just disruptive. The traffic is horrible. The late guy was walking his kid the other day crossing in front of me, in front of my alley, and he had to stop the car because he was turning into the alley. So parents are also walking their kids through the alley. Ridiculous. That alleys are not made for thoroughfare for people to walk through. Not like that when you have small ones. The folks on the bikes, we appreciate that for the environment. That's wonderful. That's dangerous too. So I'm just saying this because I'm venting for the community. I'm venting for my neighbors because we're just sick and tired of it. Then we've got the townhouses you got to deal with now. We went meeting after meeting after meeting after meeting about the townhouses that they were going to put up. We went to meeting after meeting after meeting with the schools that they were going to put down in that small area. How much do you think we can take? Really? How much do you think we can take? It's ridiculous. I have 3 beautiful children, 4 grandchildren. I love children. But it comes to a point where you have to consider people. I'm retired, my husband retired, there are other people retired. Wasn't feeling well one day. I'm waking up to a lot of kids squealing and yelling and screaming and whistles blowing. I haven't finished. So this is where the problem is. I love children, don't get me wrong, please. That area is too small. Now you're gonna bring in more kids? How is that fair to us? How is that fair to us that we didn't even know about a playground being put down? Now we're out there concerned because a car could go running through the traffic or run a red light or something and the kids are crossing the street. That's very, very dangerous. Very dangerous. They should have put it in a safer area, so a location where they wouldn't have that traffic and they have to cross the street to go to a playground. And it will take you all, if something happened to one of those kids or a couple of those kids, then you'll be ready to take action.
Thank you, Joyce. I appreciate your concern. This is clearly a major issue. I do want to just touch on 2 things real quick that you mentioned, and say that, Delando, as I mentioned at the start of this, we talked about the timing of the crosswalk signals on Taylor Street, because and I think she's right that we need to look at the timing of the crosswalk from on Varnum crossing 12th Street at Varnum to the other playground, because what happens is Mundo Verde has a playground plan where they split it up, and some of the kids go to Turkey Thicket some days, and some of the kids go to the EYA on Michigan Park playground other days, right? And so they are very concerned about the littlest kids crossing Taylor Street, and I've been told that the timing of the light cycle at Taylor Street is not long enough for those little kids to cross. So it is definitely something we need to look at. So they are more likely to bring them over to the Michigan Park playground, but there's still a short crosswalk there. And so there's still concerns there. I do want to share also for the community that there will be another playground coming with the development of Mundo Verde. So they will have their own playground eventually with the development of the other building. But in the meantime, we have these problems that we have to solve now, because that's in the future. So, Delano, I don't know if you want to chime in. I've got a couple other hands.
I would love to. Yeah, I can chime in. Sure, I would love to. A couple of takebacks, because as everyone was sharing their comments and concerns, I was taking notes to report back. So I think the best thing, Commissioner Costello and Lucio, regarding the locations that are in the Safe Routes to School. So let me, I guess, go back a little bit. Commissioner Costello, I know you mentioned, can we just go through the regular process? So when there are service requests submitted for areas that schools are in, I forgot to mention, they never go through the regular process. They go through a different department called Safe Routes to School. Right. That's managed by a gentleman named Derek Hardy. What I will do tomorrow when I get into the office is I will see if I can coordinate a meeting with him, me and Kelly Jong Olsen, and then I'll see if there's a way to have it be a collaborative meeting, a second meeting that can include you 2 commissioners. I think that would be the best way to do it, whether it's in an email form or we just, I've added you guys, I believe, on like group threads with internal parties if they get permission. If he's not willing to actually have a meeting whether it's virtual, then we can just kind of have correspondence in a thread where we all can just engage and bounce back and forth. That's
fine. I think just to clarify what I meant by like the regular process. So there's this pilot project for 10 schools. And what I was thinking of by regular process is if we just need like a curb extension or a speed hump that's in a school area, school zone, could we just put that through separately? I know it would get routed through the Safe Routes to School team, but is that something we could do separately, or is DDOT not doing any traffic calming near any other schools other than the pilot projects?
Well, being transparent, Derek Hardy is the one who closed out your service request and provided the response that I shared. So I think it's just best that I reach out to him, schedule the meeting, and then we try to collaboratively engage you both in the conversation. and go
Okay.
from there. I don't want to say anything, otherwise it wouldn't be honest. He did
Okay.
close out your service request and did say that it was going to be considered for the 10 spots that they're going to do the study analysis. So I will engage him in the conversation and see what we can do about those I believe it was 3 service requests that were closed with that same comment, and see if there's something we can do in the shorter term interim.
Great, thank you, Dwando. Jelks, is that how you say your name?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you for your patience in waiting. I've seen your
Okay.
hand flash. Thank
One of the things that I would like to suggest, and I think that you said it earlier, and that is, I feel that a committee, Monteverde and the community, someone from, some people from the community and the 2 commissioners sit down with DDOT. That would be a really good thing, because number one, I listened to what Ralph said. I listened, and I concur with Commissioner Costello. I was very upset of the safe route to school, and that, a couple of things that were happening. But I truly feel that, number one, the school isn't going anywhere. Number two, that this is going to be a community where there are going to be more children, and we need to face that. It's growing. The children are here. They're not going anywhere. It's going to increase. I live on Upshur Street, and one of the things is that I know what Ralph was talking about when he was talking about the traffic. I have seen parents on bikes. I've seen parents walking. They could either be going over to Bunker Hill, or they could be going to Monteverde. And I've just cringed, because when the cars speed up, once they come across 12th Street, and they speed up, and they could hit these parents on bikes. So I am just suggesting that a committee be formed, and maybe that can help it, because people are going all off in all directions on this meeting, but they're not coming to the purpose of the meeting, was to solve the problem that's over there now. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Ms. Jelks. Ms. Jelks, are you in 5A or 5B?
I'm in Commissioner Costello's.
Okay, you're in 5B. So if
Single
you,
member district.
okay,
So that's
if
5B.
you- Yep. So
Yes,
if you
but-
could do me a favor and reach out to
Go
her.
ahead.
I have included her on an email of this task force that we're working on with the community and Mundo Verde. And if you're interested in that, she can get you connected with that group. Anne, you had your hand.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
So I am going to come on camera for this, because I cannot begin to tell you how deeply frustrated I am by people who are frustrated that DDOT hasn't been paying attention to their requests for traffic calming for a year or a year and a half. We have been fighting the problem of traffic in the alleys for about 20 years now, ever since 10th Street was turned one way. The Washington Jesuit Academy has been in its location pretty much since 10th Street was turned one way. And I can tell you for a fact that students who get off the H6 bus, or the H8 bus on Taylor Street walk directly up the alley between Taylor and Upshur and Varnum to get to the Washington Jesuit Academy. And they have been doing that the entire time the school has been opened. So the issue with cars being in conflict with pedestrians in the alley is not new. We have been shouting about it for 2 decades. So to say that this is a new issue that is caused by the Mundo Verde school being there is also not true, because we had the same problem when the Potomac Lighthouse School was in that same building. We are not discussing the elephant in the room, which is the fact that the reason that people are using the alleys is because they cannot use the street. Now, part of what happened in this resolution that Emily has circulated and very nicely put up on her website is that these 2 ANC SMD meetings separately and jointly voted to reject the idea that 10th Street be returned to 2-way traffic. And that is a problem. because the traffic is going to go where the traffic can go. And right now, where the traffic can go is into the alleys, which are not designed for it. They are not cambered for it. And they impede residents' use and access to their property, and they interfere with city services. I cannot begin to tell you how lovely it was the day that right out that window over there, some guy sat in the alley laying on his horn because the trash truck was not moving fast enough, and the driver had to get out of the truck to ask him to stop, and he made a U-turn in the alley. In an alley, he made a U-turn. This is not normal traffic. And this traffic, if you think it's bad now, if you think it's going to be bad when Mundo Verde adds another 150 or 200 or 300 students or whatever they're adding with their new building, I would like to encourage you to expand your imagination and imagine how bad it's going to be when Ascension Health does whatever they're going to do with the old Providence site, because that is coming. So I would also like to add, in addition, my neighbor Jonathan has already been hit in the alley once by a car while he was walking his dog. And that was before Mundo Verde went in. So this is not a new problem. And it is incredibly frustrating to hear, no, 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 we can't do anything. We can't do anything.
Thank you, Anne. Delando, do you want to respond?
Yes, I kind of want to just give a brief overview on what I intend on doing for next steps post this meeting. So I will be, again, as I stated, I will be coordinating a meeting with Derek Hardy, who is over Safe Routes to School, and my supervisor, Kelly, to share the community's concerns and discuss the outstanding service requests that were included in the study analysis, and see if there are some alternative ways that we can revisit these concerns in the immediate future. I will also be trying to advocate for you and Commissioner Costello to be included in that conversation at some point along the line. Next, I will also mention the alley concern and see if there is something else outside of what I've been told firmly for safety implementation regarding just installing the speed signs. I can do that. I can't promise anything, but I can take the conversation back regarding the alley concerns. The next concern that I will be addressing internally will be regarding the timing, crossing the intersections of 10th and 12th Street, at Taylor and Barnum as well, to extend it. I know that it was already extended, I believe last year or earlier this year. So I will let them know that pedestrians need additional time, and see if that can be adjusted. And then if there's a timeline that they can provide to have that implementation changed. If I am missing anything else here, let me know. I do want to, again, state for the immediate future outside of, I mean, I'm speaking on behalf of DDOT, so I don't want to necessarily try to seem like I'm deflecting to an additional agency, but I do think that it is very important regarding the alley concern to involve MPD. I think that enforcement on some of this is just, it may be enforcement, and it may need to be additional measures from DDOT as well. But I do think that MPD needs to be involved in this conversation as far as the speeding through the alleyways and any other speeding in the area. I think it will help mitigate and lessen some of the behavior that is seems to be revolving on a daily basis. But those are the items that I will be bringing back. If there's anything else additional anyone would like me to add to the list, I'm happy to do so. And of course, I will be following up with you, Commissioner Lucio and Costello, regarding the items I've included here.
Thank you, Delando. Go ahead, Commissioner.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I just want to say on the signal crossing time, it sounds like this is an issue that's not during rush hour, but during the school day instead.
Okay.
And I want to be cognizant of the fact that we already have a lot of traffic issues during rush hour on Taylor Street. So maybe DDOT could consider extending the crossing signal time across Taylor Street, like after what, 9:30 or something like that, when we're more likely to see students crossing that street. If I'm wrong, and there are more students that, younger children who tend to cross Taylor Street even during rush hour, I hope folks will speak up. But I think my understanding is that the issue is a lot of kids are crossing throughout the school day, not during rush hour. So, that might be something for DDOT to consider, and folks can tell me if I'm wrong or not. Real quick though.
That's correct, Commissioner.
Okay. There was another resident who's on the phone. I don't know if she wanted to speak up, but last four digits were 5,700. Commissioner Lucio, I don't know how they unmute when they're on the phone. You might have to do that manually.
She has to do that herself. I can ask her to unmute, but she needs to do that. There's a
Okay.
yeah. She has
Okay.
to. She's still on, but she would have to unmute herself. Okay, Roxana, you have your hand up.
Yes, I just wanted to make two comments because Delando, you were mentioning that there are certain items that you're going to bring back to DDOT, and you're soliciting feedback on what else we would add to that list of things to bring back to DDOT. And so what I would say is, at least on my end, if you could reopen all of the requests that were part of the resolution submitted by Commissioner Stinger Lucio and Commissioner Costello, because it just seems kind of silly to me that their resolution or their various requests would be closed out when Mundo Verde has less than a 10% chance of being selected for this study. That like time is TBD, like which schools are going to be selected, TBD, but all of your resolutions are or not all, but like a majority of your resolutions are just going to be like closed out now because maybe you will be the lucky 10% that's selected. And so I would say, I don't know in any other context where that would be like an acceptable response that doesn't just seem silly on its face. And so I would ask DDOT to reconsider and reopen those requests. In the alternative, I would also ask you to stress to DDOT that Mundo Verde is uniquely situated with regard to all of the DC public schools, in particular because it's going to expand and it's literally going to double in size. Like this problem is not going away. And so if the former isn't going to sway people, then maybe this latter point will sway people. And that is Mundo Verde, and the situation around Mundo Verde is a unique and extreme circumstance that warrants heightened attention from DDOT. And I hope that you will advocate for us in that regard. And the final thing that I would request is, and it's not even a request, it's an extension of an invitation to Director Lott to come visit this area between 8 and 8:30 a.m. Monday through Friday, so that he can see firsthand what we're talking about. It's a little disappointing that like constituents have been saying for dozens and dozens of years what their concerns are, and still there's no redress for the vast majority of their concerns. And it just seems like we're screaming into a void. And maybe the only resolution is for Director Lott to see this himself in the same way that he walked in front of Mary Bethune Elementary School right after Allie Hart was killed on that corner. So the invitation, to the extent I, as like, a lowly constituent of Ward 5 can make this request or this invitation, is come check it out yourself, Director Lott, so that you can see what we're talking about.
Thank you, Roxana. And for the record, Delando, I do want to also just add to what she said so eloquently is that this school is uniquely situated for a number of reasons, but also because there is one way in and one way out, essentially. And I don't know if you're familiar with it, but when the cars come around the building to do drop off, they literally have to come out through the oncoming traffic that's coming up the street to drop off their kids. There's no way to come down without crossing into that traffic that's already coming around. So there are a number of issues. So Delando and Commissioner Costello, feel free to chime in on this, but what I'd like to request is that in addition to the three things that you mentioned, Delando, which I think are a start, I would like us to go back with this meeting that you're proposing. I would like to go back to the original resolution and all of the things that were originally suggested and go through with you and with I'm sorry, I can't remember his name.
Yeah, Cardi.
Yes,
Yeah, some of the
to-
items are not in his jurisdiction though. So
That's fine. I think we would just like to reopen the discussion about those and the ones that are within his jurisdiction overall and say, you know, which of these can we address? So, and what other possible solutions are there given the nature of the situation around this school? Because it is a huge problem. And you know, there are, you know, there are limitations in terms of what we can do. We can't necessarily create new streets, although I know at one point in time there were proposals for a couple new streets through that area, but it's my understanding that DDOT's not going that direction. So based on what the existence of the streets that the way they are laid out now, this is what we have to work with. And I think we absolutely need to find new ways to address this immediately. And I apologize, I accidentally called on Roxana before Miss Eacock, and she had her hand up first, so I want to go to her next.
And the name is Ekoke.
I'm sorry.
That's all right. So before Mundo Verde, there was Yuying, there was Potomac Lighthouse, and there was the Jesuit School. This is not new in that corner. And there was Yuying and the Potomac Lighthouse kids all together in that building. And the traffic was not as chaotic as it has been with Mundo Verde. I have lived in that corner on 10th and Urel for 22 years. I know exactly what's going on. And the kids do not walk in the alley. Who have a couple of kids, you see them from Jesuit school who are in the neighborhood, but most of them are being driven in a bus sometimes, or their parents. And I've noticed it because my kid used to go to school in Yuying, and we used to walk them to school from home, and other parents used to park in the neighborhood and walk them to school. This matter of the alleyways has come because there is more traffic, foot traffic, bike traffic in the alleyway, coupled with people driving fast through the neighborhood to avoid the traffic on Taylor Street. And perhaps, again, I'm going to insist, and I don't know what the rules are between the different jurisdictions, that we have several pronged approaches other than to lay this on the foot of DDOT to take care of the problem. It means we need to start telling parents you can't walk your kids through the alleyway. You can't ride your bikes through the alleyway. We have MPD come out and say, especially if you're a DC resident and you're speeding through the alleyway, you got tickets. I saw Ann put in the chat room that people from Virginia and Maryland cannot, if you give them a ticket, this is as worthless as the paper in which it is written. But perhaps we want to have a chat with those jurisdictions and say, can we help each other out? It just cannot be us complaining about the fact that people are speeding and we have speed bumps. The speed bumps that we've got, they're supposed to be about, I think, 150 feet. I'm trying to think meters here now. About 150 feet minimum, yeah, and perhaps 320 feet maximum in space. And those speed bumps that you've seen from Taylor to Upshur, that you all are contemplating putting another one at the end of 10th Street and Vanham, you can tell when people go through the first speed bump, for whatever reason, they speed up, and they go through the second speed bump and come through that corner as they turn on to Urel Place, as if they were bat out of hell. Now, if there were somebody from the MPD just standing there, even if they're not giving tickets, and then people notice that this is going to happen if they're DC residents, I can assure you that it will change behavior. So it's a several-pronged approach. And that's why I think as a community, we should not be just saying DDOT should go put speed bumps there, because people still go through those speed bumps as if it were nothing. It really doesn't calm it down. And the people who come from Maryland or from other places, or people who come to deposit their kids at school and they're late, speed just as much. And they go past the speed bump and they hurry up, and they go past the next speed bump and they hurry up. I see it happen all the time. In the morning, because they come and park in front of my home. In the afternoons at 3:30, because they do the same thing, because I sometimes work from home. And this is not new in the community, I can guarantee you and assure you, but it has gotten worse. And I can tell you that for sure, because I had my kid go to school at that same building, and now he's in uni. So what I'm trying to say to this community, I understand that people are emotional about it and afraid that their kids might get hurt, and that is a real thing. I'm afraid that somebody might run into my home someday because of the way they're speeding. I'm afraid that some parent on their bike, probably not paying attention and talking to their friend as they ride their bike down the street in the opposite direction, might get hurt because somebody is speeding. I've seen all of this happen. Human behavior is in total display with that 4-range block in which we all live. I want to be able to be in my community and decide to drive through the alleyway to get out to a main street without being hindered because somebody else has decided that they're going to use an alleyway to be a pedestrian location for them when there is a sidewalk. So what I am suggesting as a solution is that we call MPD, we call people from the Mundo Verde school and say to them, we need to have you talk to your parents and let them know for the kids who walk to school that the alleyway is not a pedestrian route. And for the parents who want to bike, they can bike and make, I would love them to bike on the streets and hold up the traffic such that those people who are speeding down the street cannot do it, because that's where they would belong. That would be my solution, and have MPD involved by all means. And then DDOT can look at different ways. I don't know, other than putting speed bumps, what else they can do, notices and signs and what have you, to say stop in different, as some lady had suggested earlier on, and say stop. Maybe that would make them stop. Hopefully that would help. But we can't continue saying DDOT is the only person who can actually fix this problem. All of us are in it, and all of us need to be able to say to everybody that this is your agency to make this work. And this is your duty on you, the parents. This is your duty on kids. This is your duty on the people who are driving through our neighborhood like bats out of hell.
Thank you. I want to just mention it's 7:44. We are going to have to start wrapping things up. I do want to mention for everybody's information that, as I mentioned earlier, we have met with DDOT with Mundo Verde. Mundo Verde has put out multiple communications to their parents. This is clearly something we need to continue to ask them to do, but that they have put out multiple communications to their parents, partly because we've asked them to, but also just because they've noticed the issues themselves. What I would recommend people do as they notice various issues is that what's been most effective is when parents call the school directly and say, I just saw 3 kids walking through the alley who almost got hit by a car with a parent of you driving, or whatever the case may be. They tend to be very responsive when you send them an email. And what I'd also recommend is if you send them an email saying that you CC either myself or Commissioner Costello or both of us. The school actually sits in my single member district, but 5B is right on the border. So, if you can include both of us, that would be great. We've had a continued relationship with them, and we want to continue that. And we've involved them in the community. We will continue to involve them in the community. And we do need to continue to have these discussions. I do appreciate all of the suggestions that have been shared tonight. I think Delando has heard quite a bit. I appreciate the fact that he's going to take this back to DDOT. Delando, I want to echo the invitation. I think Commissioner Costello and I both would be happy to meet with Director Lott and have him come see for himself firsthand with obviously you and with Kelly if needed, the situation. And what I would recommend is that we schedule it at a time, either at around drop-off time, most likely drop-off time, because pickup time tends to be staggered. But if we could do it around drop off time in the morning, I think you will see the worst of the situation. So we are happy to schedule a time to do that with all of you and see firsthand for yourself, and which may actually prove to be the most useful way for you to really get a sense of what's going on.
Got it.
Okay. Okay. Any final comments?
Yes, I have a comment.
Okay,
Who
Ms.
would we
Foster, go ahead.
my neighbors, the ones, folks that are concerned about the noise that's coming with the kids going up and down the street. Who do we talk to about that? Whistles blowing, kids squealing and all that.
Yeah.
Something has to be improved about that. It's
Thank you,
quite-
Joyce. If you want to email me, since the school is in my single member district, you're more than welcome to do that. If you live in Commissioner Costello's SMD, I'd encourage you to CC her on that email. But I had put my email in the chat earlier, but I'll say it again. It's 5A03@anc.dc.gov. I see you searching for a pen. It's 5A03@anc.dc.gov. And Commissioner Costello's is 5B05 at the same last part of it. So just email us and I can connect you with a representative from the school to answer those questions. I want to point out that Roxana mentioned in the comments that Mundo Verde leadership has shared that the city won't provide crossing guards to assist with the traffic, so the school does use their own teachers. I want to share also that when the school first opened, the city did provide a traffic guard. That I don't know what happened to that, but that might also be something Delando to look into as to why originally the city was providing a school traffic guard and now they're not. So we may need to look into that as well.
Okay, I can add that to the list. Crossing guard, correct.
Yes. All right, final comment from Anne, and then we're gonna wrap this up.
So I've heard a lot of comments from my neighbors about how people don't belong in the alleys. And while I would not myself make the choice to walk my child through the alley to school in the morning, knowing what the traffic is like, I am not everyone else. That said, I would also like to remind everyone who has suggested that people don't belong in the alleys, that the alleys exist for residents to access and maintain their property and for the city to provide services. It is impossible for me to access my garage without being a person in the alley. It is impossible for my spouse to clean our fence line, weed, pick up trash, what have you, without being a person in the alley. People who drive through these alleys, no matter why they are there, give no regard to the residents who live in this area. They give no regard to our safety. They give no regard to our right to access and maintain our property. And quite frequently, they are abusive about it, whether that is based on sex and gender or perceived sexual orientation. This is a people problem. This is not a you shouldn't be doing problem. And it's a problem that we have to deal with from the side of maintaining and controlling traffic.
Oh, no, Adrian, I
Okay, thank you, Anne. I appreciate that. Okay, Delando, do you want to say anything finally? Your final thoughts?
Just thank you to everyone who's shared their opinion tonight. I don't want you guys to think that it's gone on deaf ears, at least with me. The things that I've listed, I will commit to, again, following up with. Tomorrow, Commissioner Lucian Costello, you'll receive an email from me. I'll CC Kelly on that email to review basically, the things that we need to follow up on internally, just to kind of get the conversation started. And again, once me and Kelly meet with Derek Hardy, that should be this week, I can hopefully engage you guys in the conversation, even if it's just, like I said, an email thread with him on it, so that you guys can talk directly to him and kind of from the source how we can mitigate some of these concerns. Again, I can't say it enough. I think that, again, this is, as Ms. Ikoke mentioned and a couple other residents, it is a collaborative effort. It will be DDOT that needs to do their part. It will be the school that needs to do their part, MPD that needs to do their part. There are traffic calming measures that can, I'm sure, based off of this call, be implemented, additional things that can help assist with these concerns, but there also will need to be enforcement. You know, you can put a stop sign, but you can't force anyone to not run it, right? So if there is concerns where people are not abiding by the implementations that the city has implemented, because DDOT does not enforce, then there needs to be additional agencies such as, again, MPD, and I believe that the school should be engaged, as you guys already are. It seems as though that's the case. So again, I will follow up with the list of items that I've included. I will follow up with you all tomorrow, Commissioner Lucio and Costello, with a list so that we're clear on the communication needs to be had, and we'll go from there.
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you to Mr. Baker. We kind of put you in the firing line tonight, but we appreciate your feedback, and hopefully we'll come to some resolution on some of the most pressing, outstanding problems in the neighborhood. And I do want to thank neighbors too, who came to the meeting tonight with their observations about traffic in the neighborhood and their constructive suggestions about how to address it. I think that's always helpful to us. We don't have the answers all the time. Sometimes, you know, we have ideas, but it really takes a community to solve the problem together, because it's your neighborhood and, you know, you need to be able to weigh in on it. So I just want to thank everyone for bringing their ideas to the table tonight too. I think this has been a pretty helpful conversation, and hopefully the next time we meet, we will have some good news to share, and hopefully safer streets in the neighborhood so residents can have a little bit more peace in their
So
home.
if I may add, just useful resources. I've included my email in the chat. If there are any concerns, if it's a paving concern, if it's a down sign, if it's the concerns we've had in this meeting tonight, feel free to email me directly, and I will respond to you. We can kind of get some correspondence there. And anything that I share in the meeting with Commissioner Costello and Lucio, I'm sure that they will relay to the community. So hopefully everyone can stay engaged in this process so we can keep the conversation going.
Thank you, Delando, and thank you, Commissioner Costello, for coming tonight. Thank you to all the residents. I want to echo what Commissioner Costello said. This is a team effort. You know, it's important that everybody get a chance to weigh in on this and provide support and feedback. But, you know, we also want to make sure that the city is well aware of the issues we are dealing with so that we can properly address them in ways that work for our community. So thank you, everyone, tonight. Delando, I will look forward to hearing from you soon, and we will
tomorrow.
Great. And, you know, and if we can find a date to bring Director Lott out, or and you and Kelly, we would love to have that opportunity to show you what's going on firsthand.
I will have the conversation internally about that as well. If I don't feel like we're getting anywhere, I will have an additional conversation with you two separately as to how you guys can probably go the best way in kind of forcing this, forcing him to kind of participate in the conversation. There's a process in an email format that if, again, he's not really available, there may be other ways we can go around, or you all can go around calling DDOT out to actually have him physically come out and do a site visit.
We can put some pressure on, no problem.
Yeah, sometimes that has to happen. It's politics, unfortunately, sometimes. So we can have that conversation offline after I initiate it internally.
Yep, absolutely. We would be happy to do that and help you
Okay.
out.
Yeah.
Thank you
Thanks,
so
Bob.
much, everyone. Have a great night. Thank you for coming out tonight.
Good night.
Good night.